Here we are with two members from Carbine Studios. Guys, if you want to introduce yourselves and tell us what you do at the studio.
Well, I'm Mike Eldard. I'm the global brand manager. As you notice, I have a very strange accent for an American. I was exported a few years ago from NC Soft Brighton over to the Carbine Studios with you guys. And
my name is Max Matzenbacher. I'm one of the devs at Carbine. I'm on the combat team. Work as an effects artist.
Good stuff. Okay, so for those that don't know what Wildstar is, could you tell us a bit about the game?
So Wildstar is a brand new sci-fi MMO being developed at Carbine Studios in California. It takes place on and around the planet Nexus. The planet Nexus is newly rediscovered. It is basically thought to be the ancient homeworld of this race of hyper-advanced super beings, and they seem to have disappeared and left this planet. So now the rush is on to capture the planet and settle it and discover it. And so that's when the player comes in. The player can choose from either the Dominion faction or the Exiles. The Dominion are basically the government, if you will, of the universe. They rule over everything with an iron fist, so to speak. They're not so much the bad guys as much as the guys you love to hate, or if you're a player, the players who love to be hated. And then the Exiles are the kind of scrappy, mercenary, outlaw, renegade type, and that brings you to the planet.
An Empire versus Rebels situation going on.
I would make it more akin to the kind of the man versus the the punks and the riffraff, if you will.
Yeah, right. Okay. So it's an MMO, right?
Yes.
And I've seen, from what I've seen anyway, it's very movement based. There's a lot of movement compared to most MMOs.
Absolutely.
Where you just stand there and click and something happens.
Absolutely.
So could you describe the gameplay to us?
Okay.
Brief terms.
Yeah. So to go off of what you said, instead of taking older school MMO combat that is very just purely based on statistics and kind of tab target auto lock system, we've really tried to evolve it, and we've developed something that we call freeform targeting. Freeform targeting means you can still tab and use tab targeting to get vitals, health, and stats and buffs and debuffs on a targeted creature and to help you kind of locate them. But it's decoupled the ability to have the target to use your abilities. So if you're melee, you can just use melee in front of you. If you are a caster, you can use your abilities in front of you. And then the shape of the ability is then one of the most distinctive things you'll notice about the game. So you can use your abilities. If it's a long ranged attack, it's going to shoot out in a long line in front of you. So it works much more like a MOBA style skill shot. And then what you get is something that means players they're dodging out of the way and avoiding attacks, and then they have to then simultaneously line up their attacks and land them. So it's a very frenetic pace. For someone who is used to more traditional and wants something that is more that style, you could entirely play it in that style, where you can be more kind of calm and collect and land your attacks and stay very straightforward. For people who want to play much more faster pace, much more action oriented, it can get crazy. In our internal PvP tests and PvE tests, people are all over the place, and the more that we've developed a system, the more that it continues to develop. So even abilities that we had on for a time where we had freeform and now we have and then we had targeted, like the warrior that's on the demo floor has a leap ability. Now we've taken it, completely decoupled the targeting, so now you can actually just use it to leap around. It allows you to leap over gaps and things like that. And then if you have a target within the field that it'll land, it'll leap you to the target. So.
Okay. So obviously combat is very fast paced.
Absolutely.
Keeps you in the game. But what's this about the jobs? This is
the path system.
Yeah, path. That's it. Sorry. I've heard a lot about this, but never really dived into it as much.
Sure.
It seems to me to work almost parallel to your actual profession. Almost as if it's like having your profession, which is how you fight, for example, and
Yes.
then your path, which is how you explore, almost.
That is, I think you basically got it. When players start off in the game, they will pick their faction, Exile or Dominion. They will pick their race from the various races. They're very high personality. They'll pick their class. We have lots of class options. Classes is the way that you fight. It's the way that you kill things. It's going to determine whether you're more of a caster versus melee, if you are tankier versus healing in some cases. And then the path is the way that you like to play games. So we offer 4 paths. There's the soldier, settler, scientist, and explorer. And what that means is, as you're playing through the game, every class is going to get quests, right? And every class is going to be running around and exploring the zone. And when you go into an area, for example, you'll have a couple quests that will lead you into the area, but then you'll have content that is waiting for you in the area that is quests, and then you'll have path missions. So if you are an explorer, for example, you're going to see a mountain, and someone who is an explorer type by nature is going to be the kind of player that says, I want to see if I can get to the top of that, or I want to see if I can climb up that. And they're usually the people in MMOs that are kind of exploiting and trying to get to the top of houses and structures and things like that. Yeah. So what we've tried to do is we've tried to reward that instinct that a player is going to have that says, I want to get to the top of a tree, or I want to get to the top of something. And we've made it much more of almost bringing in other genres into it. So it's much more platformy. There's jump puzzles and things. You can reach and access areas that you could not get to if you were not an explorer. And when you get there, you get rewarded for it, and you get experience for it, and then you also get path experience for it. So this spreads around. So with the scientist is the kind of discovery. Wants to understand the story behind the world, and they're going to go around and be able to analyze things, creatures, minerals, things that they find in the environment, and unlock the history of these things and why they are the way they are, and what is the explanation for them. They will get more kind of story unlocks that will help explain the zones that they're in and the world that they're seeing.
So it's great for people who are into, say, the lore behind
exactly
things.
Exactly, and we've spent a ton of time developing what we think is a really exciting piece of lore, because it's a brand new IP, and people coming to it are going to have all these questions. The example that I would give is, if you imagine that Pixar made Lost, that's what you're going to come across in this game. And it basically means you're going to go into an area, and there's always going to be the question is, why is this like this? What is happening here? What is the explanation for it? And the scientist, all the players will get a certain level of understanding just by adventuring through it and completing quests. The scientists they'll be able to dig deeper. And then the other examples are basically the settler. The settler is, because this world is newly rediscovered, and it's got kind of an Old West gold rush quality to it, where you are going in and people are trying to stake their claim and claim land. The settler is able to find resources in the environments and use these resources to build up the world. And so they can put in small cosmetic things that are signposts, and repair fences, and put in small things for other players to use, and then it becomes more and more complicated. So you can put in depots and buff stations, and so you can pick what kind of buff you want to give, and you can shout out to other players and say, hey, I've just put in this XP buff in an area. And then other players can run in and then use that buff, and then they can then put in large structures. We call them infrastructure projects. And the way that these work is that a player can run in. It's going to take a while to build up. You might work socially with several other settlers to put it together, and you'll build these structures up, and they will unlock for everybody in that area for the amount of time that those settlers can keep it active. And these could be rare quests. They could be convenience things like taxi paths and things like that. It could be rare vendors, all kinds of content that settlers have put in. And then you have the soldier, and the soldier is basically for someone that's like, I just want to go and fight things. I want to fight crazy things. And so they're going to go and have missions that are going to send them around to use weapons and tactics and and they will basically spawn boss level creatures into the environments for them to take on or for groups to take on. So.
Okay, so obviously it sounds like you've got a really diverse range of paths that interact with each other.
Definitely.
And from what they provide, they can easily offer each other their own unique abilities to others in various different forms.
So really makes for a very customisable game experience then.
Absolutely. The thing that MMOs are they're a social game, and once the player gets involved in them, they transform from being a traditional game that you would get on a console or something like that, and the player really kind of takes over and they make it their own. And so we want the theme of the world is this discovery and stake your claim and make it your own, and that's what we're trying to do. And a lot of that is customization. There's tons of customization on classes and combat, but then there's tons of customization that you get in terms of housing and developing a game that is based on the thing that you like to do, and it really allows players to make something special for them.
I mean, would that allow for things like, say if I was to build an XP buff
Yes.
station for people in my faction, would that allow the opposing faction to come in and say, well, no, I don't want them getting that, and blow that up?
That is absolutely something that we are trying to keep in there. In areas where, in kind of lower level areas where there's less PvP oriented content, you would say defend it from NPCs that would try to go in and take it out, and settlers can band together and protect these. They would get path XP for that. And then you would get, like you're saying, you get the inevitable PvP implication, which is that I see those guys have something, I hate that faction, I'm going to go in and mess with it, and players are going to want to defend it.
So in this type of PvP, is it open world, or is it like instance, so only certain areas, or is it going to be server based?
So we've
So the contested zones themselves will have both factions in, and it's open world in that case. There'll be instanced areas where there'll be other things going on, but the likes of the zone White Veil, that's got Dominion and Exile content in there, and you then will have PvP elements within that as well.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's a whole range. There's definitely going to be your open world. There's players that just want to kill other players. That's all they want. They just want to be able to hunt down other players, and there is PvP entirely based on that. And then there's people that want kind of quick matching and just casual style where they can just kind of hop in and fight, and we will support all of that.
So there's a mixture of structured and just freeform.
Exactly. And so it allows, especially once you get into the end game, the Elder Game content, it allows if you only have, you hop on, it's late at night, you only have 20 minutes to play, I'll hop in, I'll do a match. If you're someone that wants to have a super competitive PvP where they want to be the top 5% best, they can get that. We're trying to support it so that there's people who are going to have almost open style. If you consider like car racing, for example, you get like your open classes where it's like anything goes. You can get any gear that you want, any items that you get, any potions or things that you can bring into it. It's anything goes, and then you could be the best of that, and then you'd have more of your stock class style where everyone is kind of using similar gear and it's very leveled and based and even, and so then it's just a pure skill matchup at that point. This is a battle that's playing out between the Dominion on the right and the Exiles on the left. This is outside one of the Exile hub cities early on. If you're looking at it from the high level, you'll notice it's a very kind of action-packed scene that's playing out. You're seeing telegraphs that are occurring that are the large environmental telegraphs from incoming artillery that players that are questing and fighting in the environment would have to simultaneously avoid. The benefit to those is that if you can get enemy NPCs or players into those telegraphs, then they're going to take damage from them.
Okay.
Somebody's going to join the fray. So going off of what you were saying before, it's very mobile. The telegraph system provides a lot of various attacks that you'll have to avoid and quickly react to. You're seeing an example of what we call layered content, in that there is several quests going on in an environment. You can get settler or path missions in an environment that would allow you to scan things, and if you're a scientist, or explore things, or battle things that are tied to your path while you're doing quest content.
Right. So he's brought up his UI now. You see that hotkeys at the bottom.
Yeah.
Are they all going on cooldown when he's using them?
So what you're seeing here. So you're talking about the kind of GCD style.
Yeah.
So yeah, what we do is every class will have a little bit of a GCD just to kind of deal with server performance and latency, but it's a little bit of a weird presentation in that you're seeing Mike's macros all below it, but it's part of a limited action set. So right now, I believe you're seeing. This is also a very dated UI, so it's a little awkward to look at. He's got his limited set of skills that he's using. He'll be able to pick from a larger pool of abilities that you'll get as you level up, or you'll unlock through speccing and that sort of thing.
So how easy is it to change specs? I mean, do you need to be committed to one, or can you chop and change on the fly?
It's something that we're kind of continuing to develop. The specifics on it, I couldn't go into. This is the exact way it's going to be at launch. There is the skill set that you'll be able to swap out different abilities. So if you wanted something that was more mobile versus more kind of stationary focused damage, you could pick between these abilities. If you wanted something that was more one role versus another role, you would potentially have to go back and pick another larger pool of abilities.
All right. So what are we looking at right now then? Is he going on an exploration?
So now Mike has cheated himself and turned himself into a scientist.
Right.
Dirty cheater. And he's pulling out his scanner bot. So the scientists, as we were saying, they are all about analyzing the environment and coming up with explanation for what's going on. He's pulling up his galactic arc, or the codex rather,
yeah.
And this is giving him quests, and you can see here things where he's getting XP, and he has simultaneous path advancement along with his class advancement. So he's got a scientist mission to go and scan the local wildlife. So he's gonna, Gallerus is filled with these giant flowers. He's gonna run and send his scanner bot and scan this flower, and so his mission is now transforming from scan that plant to, oh God, don't get eaten. So even though he's a scientist and he's trying to get the explanation for things, he's also going to have to defend himself and do a little ass kicking.
So I've noticed that there's a couple of different UI elements that help warn you of danger.
Correct.
Seen a couple of red lines and a giant red circle.
Yeah.
Anything else that the player is made aware of use of this system?
During combat, well, what you're seeing is different shapes of telegraphs and different styles of telegraphs that the creature is using. In terms of specifics, avoidance, some of these things are still being polished, but for the most part, you're seeing just the different kinds of attacks that are incoming. So now that Mike is completed this, he will get more lore about the kind of creature that he interacted with. As that goes on, the more he fights creatures like that, he will get more unlocks. This is another scientist submission here. So he's discovered this gateway. It's advanced Elden-looking technology. He's getting his scanner bot is scanning each of these devices, and it's going to tell him this is a lock. And now he's going to get a mission that says try to solve this lock.
So it's a puzzle then?
It's a puzzle, and it's cool because it's a dynamic puzzle, which means every time that you would interact with it, it's going to be a different puzzle. The problem being that it's a dynamic puzzle, and now Mike actually has to solve it for us.
Oh, pressure's on.
So while Mike's working on that, the cool thing to point out is that the things like this, it represents one of the benefits of the pass system in that you get to see exclusive content by being your path. So he's a scientist. If he unlocks this, he's going to unlock it that you could not unlock if you were not a scientist. Means grouping with other scientists is a benefit.
Yeah.
So a scientist could unlock this.
And then
Nicely done, Mike.
could benefit from it.
And then he can go in there. So he's going to go run in there, and waiting for him is a boss level robot. Which again, if you couldn't take it on by yourself, you could call for help. You could group up with people and take it on. And Mike cheats again. What's handy, if you notice there, is every time he's killing creatures, loot is spilling out. We call that the loot pinata. He's using V to vacuum loot these things in quickly. Because it was a boss creature, it dropped a found quest, basically, its head. So what that means is when you're going around and you find something out in the world, rather than getting in that position where you're like, you go back into town and someone's like, hey, can you go kill that giant boss creature?
Yeah.
When he finds it out in the world spontaneously, he gets immediate result, and that means other path people that have come and completed the mission with him can also benefit from that discovered quest.
So I mean, aside from accessing path-specific areas like
Yes.
this, is there any other rewards to the path quests?
Absolutely. When Mike was pulling up the codex there, you were seeing that he had advancement through there. We are going to be providing a whole simultaneous leveling path to your, like you would expect with your class, that there will be path things that you can unlock. These could turn into buffs. These could turn into abilities potentially that are path specific. Items, all kinds of things that you will advance through purely based on completing path missions. So now Mike's going to go fly us over to a new area. So now we're going from Gallerus. We're going to fly over a Dominion-controlled area here. And he's going to take us into another zone called Algarok.
So, just by what you've got so far in terms of content, how big would you say the game world is?
You're looking at a good 150 hours of content so far.
Yeah, it's pretty huge.
And it's all variety. Every area is different. You know, it's a different zone.
No 10 minutes then?
No, different creatures as you go through. You have the Elden bots and everything thrown in on top of creatures, on top of different flora and fauna, on top of different visual styles for each zone. And it just adds that variety that you get as you play. So you don't get the fatigue of, I'm stuck in this one place. You know, this is all one zone, and you know we've seamlessly flown through from, a battle that was ongoing into an excavation pit, and then we'll fly into a small settler town, and then we'll fly through there into a place where there's loftite crystals ripping out the ground, and that's all within the space of one play area.
So even so what Mike's saying is that even within the zones themselves, that will have a very specific character and quality to them that is going to be very distinct. Even within that, he's now in what we call a subzone that has an entirely different vibe from the rest of the zone. It's the two worlds kind of blend together. In this case, lore-wise, this zone is filled with this alien mineral called loftite, which we'll see later. And the settlers in the zone are coming in and they're excavating. They're trying to dig it up and get more of it. And in their excavations and mining, they have uncovered this giant underground facility, and it's filled with this crazy, technology from the Elden.
Laser robots.
Yeah, and so one of these things is this gigantic Elden annihilator that is attacking in the environment. So as you were seeing earlier, with the artillery that I was having to dodge while he's fighting creatures in here, he's having to avoid the attacks from the annihilator itself. So if he gets attacked by the annihilator and he basically is able to pull the creatures in it, they'll take damage. the benefit to this kind of area and this approach to zone design is that you go into an area, you'll have maybe a quest or a story quest that'll lead you into an area, but rather than going into a quest hub and getting, half a dozen quests that say, hey, go into that area, clear it out, and come back. What'll happen is you'll get one quest that'll lead you in, and when you're in there, you'll discover other quests, and then you'll have path missions waiting for you that will allow you to kind of take advantages of different parts of content in there.
So it's safe to say that the questing is pretty emergent in that you discover it as you progress.
As much as possible, we have tried to make something that there are quests that will happen when you get into areas. Because he's got the communicator, he can get called when he's in an area that will announce certain things to him. It is definitely more on the immersive side versus just a purely go talk to one quest giver and he's got 10 quests waiting for him. So now he's in a new area called Gallo. Again, as you can tell, the whole area has this vibe of it's a brand new town. The whole area is being discovered and settled and populated. So now he's cheated and turned himself into one of the other paths. He's now the settler.
So what we're looking at here, how many of these items are player placed?
In this structure right now. So he's about to put one down as we speak. The way that the settler works is that there's resources in the environments that he can go out and gather and pick up, and it allows him to go in and put in small cosmetic structures into the buildings and help build up the world that way, or he can put in functional things. So, for example, he's putting in a buff station, and he can put in a buff station with a particular kind of buff. So now other players that come in get to come in and get the benefit from this buff. This means that when you roll into areas, there's a little bit more of a social hook for the settler in terms of kind of preserving and protecting and upgrading. And if another settler has gone in and has started building something, you can help. If it's something that he's already put together, you can help maintain it. So now he's going to fly over into a new area. So again, it's this. If you think about it, the planet as a whole is going to have this frontier quality. It's an alien world filled with exotic discoveries. He's now in one of the early areas. This is Tremor Ridge. So he's going to give us another example of a settler quest. So as we were saying with like the scientist could have simple quests like scan flora and fauna, and the settler can have simple quests like kind of put up lampposts and put up structures. And now he's putting up an infrastructure project where he's gathering resources really quickly. He's turning them into to this person, and this structure is going to build over time. He's going to use a cheat now to complete it quickly. This is something that might take a while to complete. It'll take a while to gather all the resources. You can work together with other settlers, as we said.
So how long would you say is a while? I mean, is it what, an hour or a day? How long?
I would say less than a day, depending on the size and scope of it. It could be an hour. It depends on how many people are working together on it, whether you're doing it by yourself. And so this structure has unlocked a rare quest giver that everybody in the area, while it exists, can take advantage of, and then a rare vendor that sells items that they could not get access to. And these kind of structures that can be built, they range in terms of impact and gameplay. Some are, you show up to an area and you're like, man, there's no taxi here. I can't get to another area quickly, and settlers can go in and if they have the resources, boom, they can put down a taxi. So now Mike's going to cheat and jump us to a quick look at one of the dungeons in the game. This is a level approximately 30 dungeon. Okay. It's called Storm Talon.
So how many players would you usually find in a dungeon?
In this kind of dungeon, this would be a kind of balanced for about 5 people. We have group content that is boss based, that is, you know, smaller. Could be 2 to 3 people that you find randomly in environments that you discover around. Things that you can find just running around, more kind of like world spawn things, and things that where you discover. They're actually part of our discovery system. So you would run in and you'd find something and unlock it, and it's access into a boss encounter.
And I mean, what kind of rewards do you expect to get from doing a dungeon like this? Is it a better loot table?
It's there's absolutely going to be loot available to it. There's going to be crafting items. There's going to be housing items. It could be a whole slew of things. In the dungeons, we are making paths integrated into the dungeon, so you might get unlocks for your path that are specific to the dungeon. So Mike's just going to kind of quickly clear through these creatures.
So,
Yeah. He's going to try not to kill the boss like he may or may not have done before.
my picture, it didn't happen.
So it's a little difficult to tell what's going on in a boss fight because he's not actually doing it with the group. But from the high level, based on the telegraph system of creatures that are going to use telegraphs, our boss encounters are just that system, you know, way ramped up and over the top. So he's kind of cheating the boss down in health. As the boss gets lower in health, he's going to start using more and more attacks. These attacks are going to vary in terms of scope and in terms of impact. He's using one of these telegraph types where it puts a debuff on you, and then it shocks an area, and then it leaves a snaring damage field in that area. So it's very reactive. You're going to be reacting to other players. The dungeon counters are much more based on mobility, and again, because of the freeform targeting where you're having to aim and land attacks both for tanking and healing, everybody is constantly having to be aware of the actual encounter versus just like, I'm watching the boss's health, I'm watching my cooldowns. You have to be skillfully landing damage or heals and things like that. So for me, in the playtests, from a very early stage, it was super distinctive once we got the telegraphs kind of tuned up to a certain point where it was immediately noticeable that you were kind of not doing the things you tend to do in boss fights, which is just to watch health bars and then watch the kind of for certain kind of boss callouts. You're constantly having to avoid the boss's attacks. There are attacks that will live in the environment for a while. I would say that the low-level dungeons in our game are much more comparable to end-game dungeons in other MMOs.
And these traps look pretty significant. What's going on here?
Absolutely. So Mike has cheated this boss. This is Aetheros down to a health threshold, and so now it's summoning storms, and if he gets hit by any of these tornadoes, it'll shoot him up in the air, and he's having to get back. And so the boss has a system on here that we haven't talked a lot about publicly yet, but it's called interrupt armor, which means that we give the players lots of crowd control abilities to choose from in their ability sets, and so we don't want to invalidate these moves based on bosses that are just immune to all forms of crowd control. What we want to do is make the crowd control tied to group coordination and skill. So when he goes into this phase and he's shocking and avoiding the entire room, it'll go on until the group basically stuns the boss. So you can't just stun him with one stun, you would have to coordinate all of your stuns simultaneously. And so the other thing is that and Mike has kind of talked about this a little bit, but when people have seen kind of old over-the-shoulder style camera shots of our game and they've seen the telegraph system, there's some people though tend to react and go like, oh, you're taking all the skill out of it because you're focusing it too much. And that's when they're seeing low-level content where creatures are attacking at a slower rate, they're giving you 1 to 2 telegraphs. But once you get into higher level content, group content, the amount of telegraphs gets pretty crazy and it's much more frenetic.
So it eases you into it towards the late game preparing.
Exactly. If we were to throw it at you right away, there's people who have never played MMOs before that are going to be not as used to the entire concept of just how creatures are attacking and reacting to it in any form. And even people who know MMOs have to kind of be trained up on the telegraph system. And so once we get people used to that, then we can make it much more complicated. It's very exciting for the combat team to develop these systems, because every time we put something together and we put together more abilities, they kind of go back and forth between each other, where new abilities will bring in new abilities for boss encounters and things like that. So this is the final boss of the dungeon. So if you see the way the telegraphs work in this encounter, it's a little different because it only has him to target. There's no one else to target in the group, but it's going to use abilities on him that are monstrous, that are room-filling telegraphs that he has to react to. So now this is an example again where now the boss is saying that it can be stunned. So if you can get in and your group can kind of simultaneously stun the boss while that ability is going off, you can prevent it from exploding the entire room, basically.
So you're promoting coordination with groups. Then.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be super precise, like the exact second stuns. It's just you have a window of kind of stunning where you'll kind of bash through its interrupt armor.
So how does this kind of content relate to maybe your end game? I mean, have you got anything really set in stone about your late game, or is it all still up in the air at the moment? It's
I wouldn't say it's up in the air. The way that I would phrase it is it's informing it, because we're getting more testing on this level of content than the extreme end game content. It's a good preview of what players should expect in terms of, this is a level 30 dungeon, and it's had the kind of care that I would say that most games, end game dungeons, are getting. So we're hoping to develop end game content that is this good and better. We are heavily focused on making an end game experience that's extremely special. We're trying to make something that has a wide array of choices for players. You know, the end game for MMOs, there's people who love PvP, there's people who love PvE, there's people who really don't care about any. They're just interested in the kind of social environment, and we want to provide content for them that allows them to live and exist in the game and have something that they enjoy. So for people who want, 5-man dungeons, we will have endgame 5-man dungeon content. If there's people who like smaller group dungeons for endgame, more world spawn stuff, there's tons of that. We have then, for people who are into hardcore raiding and the most difficult endgame content, we are absolutely going to be supporting that kinds of content.
As we just saw, there's actually an achievement system in there.
Exactly, and so when you run through there, the dungeon will have it's kind of tracking what the group is doing, and you can get different achievements and unlocks for the way you perform in the dungeon, and that can potentially impact loot drops. It can impact things that are available. Cool. Any other questions?
I think I'm good.
All right.
I mean, the other ones, the bog standard one that you probably get asked all the time, what's the level cap going to be in game?
Right now we're looking at 50 levels as the level cap. It could change a little bit, so I wouldn't say it's set in stone for launch, but that's what we're looking at currently.
Okay.
We think that's plenty of content without being an absurdly high level cap for players, and it's something that we feel we can comfortably deliver enough high quality content throughout the leveling experience.
I mean, will there be things as well, like in Defiance, where you get sort of real world events where other people can join in on other people's battles?
Absolutely, absolutely. This is something that you're seeing a little bit currently in even the path things that he's been fighting. So a scientist is running along and he scans something and it summons a boss level creature. There is an opportunity for us in this path system to deliver that kind of content. When he unlocked the door, it was boss level. We will have like raid style bosses in Dehradun, which is one of our low level Dominion zones. There we have the creature Metal Maw, and Metal Maw is basically a low level world boss that's just waiting out there for players to take on. People on the show floor have been battling him, and without proper coordination, he can be a bit of a bear to fight. So
as it stands, have you guys thought of any, got any specifications at the moment for the games? Is there any technical specs going around, or is it still?
We have not locked in our shipping system specs.
And what's the plan? Are we going to see this on maybe less powerful machines? Is it going to be more optimized for those supercomputers?
No, we want to support a wide range. I mean, that's been our approach across the board, is that there's a wide range of players. That means content that those players like in terms of systems that they're playing on. There's a wide range. If you have, if you have the good fortune of having a monster rig, the game has a ton of detail. There's lots of physics in the environment. Little, things will blow in the wind. When players are running through grass, they'll notice things like the grass will blow around them. And then when if you don't have that, the system scales pretty well on that. Mike is getting a high level view right now. It's a good way to highlight our world building tool. It's called Genesis. And the thing that's fantastic about Genesis is it's a brand new tool built for this engine. The engine is from the ground up built, brand new, and it allows the world artist to basically go in and paint down the detail across the board. So the mountains are hand painted, the textures are hand painted, and what this means is that it's very scalable. It means that we can run it on lower end systems. Mike is running it on a laptop. It's a pretty solid laptop right now. But we know that players are going to be playing on a wide range of platforms, and we want something that really supports that.
Okay. So, any more questions, Simon?
No, that's it really.
All right. So, any news of a release date?
We have not announced a release date. We've said publicly that we're trying to hit this year, but we honestly want something that's going to be awesome. And so while we're trying to get it done as quickly as possible, get it to players as quickly as possible, we don't want to rush it and throw something out that's not ready.
Well, the game's in closed beta now at the moment.
Correct.
And that's a bit full.